pay more attention, to focus on the class, because I knew that at the end of it, I wanted to hear those positive things about myself. So it's interesting how as children, we learn these little different things to regulate our pain so we don't feel it. So I thought that was really interesting, because I think that's where I first started building up my own resilience and recognizing that if I do put the focus on myself, I can get the results that I want.
Well, and you, sorry?
No, go ahead.
You bring up, like, you're actually walking the walk and talking the talk here right now with everything you're saying, because the 4 categories, according to Rick Hansen, who wrote the book on resilience, of resilience is: number 1, recognizing; number 2, resourcing; number 3, regulating; and number 4, relating. So you recognized that, you know, that you needed to be compassionate with yourself and have that feedback, and you were mindful of that. And then resourcing was you know, having the grit and the confidence to go to your teacher and ask for that feedback. And by so doing, you were regulating, which is step 3, and you know, calmed you, gave you the motivation to keep going. And then that in turn helps you to start relating. You know, it helps you to have aspirations and courage and generosity and all of those things. So you're bang on with your assessment of this.
That's awesome. And I did quite a bit of that when I was a kid, because there was not much in terms of support around me. So those were the types of, I guess, at that time, I thought they were just games that I was doing. I was just like, okay. And as I learned through my trauma, was that Rick Hansen did have a point there, because there is so many times in my life as a child where I could say that I did recognize the situation. I saw it for exactly what it was. I resourced it out, I regulated it, and then I related. And so
yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful stuff. It's beautiful stuff. And so there's a certain 5 different characteristics, we'll just say, that most resilient people demonstrate. So that's purpose, perseverance, calmness of mind under stress, self-reliance, and authenticity. So this kind of gets a little bit more personal. So do you feel that you own all 5 of those characteristics? And then if not, which ones do you find are the most challenging to you?
Yeah, so, you know, I'll sort of share my story a little bit here.
Beautiful.
And I think that, you know, so to start off with, I want to kind of relate, you know, what Rick Hansen talks about in his book on resilience is what he calls the red zone and the green zone. And the red zone, if you can just picture, he calls it, you know, a field of zebras. And then, you know, they're grazing and they're in the green zone, okay? They're grazing and they're responding by eating, enjoying the sunny day and everything. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's a lion there. And all of a sudden they're reacting and they're in the red zone. And that's what nature has created for us, is, you know, the ability to go into the red zone as a mode of survival. And so what's happened in our world today is, because of the hustle and bustle and all the things that are coming at us all the time, we live a lot of our lives in the red zone, in a fight or flight response, and we can't differentiate anymore. And so part of what, you know, what I'm trying to teach is how to get yourself back to the reality that is, which is that green zone. And so in my life, you know, I lost a brother when I was 11 years old, and it was a very sudden thing that happened. He got spinal meningitis, and, you know, within 3 days, he was gone. And I was 11 years old at the time.
Wow.
According to developmental psychology, 11 years old is when you're really developing your sense of self. And so that was a critical time for me, and that really helped develop who I was going forward. And then when I got married, 6 months after I got married, my dad was killed in a car accident. And so I was kind of going through life. I had a university degree. I was confident. I was, in real estate. I was a licensed realtor. I was newly married. The world was my oyster. And, after that happened, and it was in my car, I had traded my vehicle with my dad that weekend. And so after that happened, I couldn't quite put the pieces together on why that shook my confidence so badly. And so it was a real crisis of confidence for me, along with the grief that went with it. And, then I went through, I kind of have, like everybody, you go through a whole bunch of different things in life, right? And so, then I went through a time where, I wasn't feeling well, and then I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and then we went, headfirst into the whole infertility IVF thing, and we ended up adopting our oldest and then having our second through IVF, and so we kind of got through that. And so you can kind of see what's happening here. It's like one thing piled and stacked on top of another. Mm-hmm. Resolving any of these things in my own mind, and then, you go through marriage and you go through life, and like so many people, you stay in the red zone, in the fight or flight. You don't consciously know how to put yourself back into that green zone of responding. Instead, you're just reacting to everything. And then about 3 years ago, my marriage fell apart, and I was married for 26 years. And so that was a really, really difficult time for me. And it was at that point that I really was having my own sort of spiritual awakening as well, added on top of that. And so really had to sort of dig down and do some reading and go back to my roots of psychology and family studies and all of that kind of thing, and figure out, what's really going on here? How can I kind of get back in the driver's seat? And that's how I came to the resilience piece. And
what were some of the methods that you used to bring yourself back to that? Because with everything that you've experienced, what was that one driving force within you that really just was like, okay, I can push through this. I can make it through this situation?
Yeah. And, some of that is what you and I were talking about last week, and I had shared with you, is a lot of this had manifested in my body. And I often say to women, you can lie to yourself, but your body doesn't lie. And so I was having all kinds of symptoms, joint pain, and, overall feeling well, everything. And so I was seeking out different modalities to help me start feeling better. And so that was the driving force, was, I got to get a handle on it here. I'm going downhill. I was, probably pounds heavier than I am right now. I wasn't feeling well. I had joint pain, and I had a whole lot of other symptoms as well. And I thought, I do something here. This is a huge, probably a bit of depression. And so, I think once again, back to the basics of having just somewhere, deep down inside of me, and Rick Hansen talks about this too, somewhere deep down inside of me, somewhere deep down inside of everyone, is that green zone, the green zone of in control, responding, nice sunny day. And I dug deep down into that green zone. And what I found was, in my life, I have had compassion for myself. And now's the time to really step up and have some compassion for myself. I can't do this anymore. I can't do diets. I can't do this hard life. I can't do so many of the things that I was forcing myself to do. It's time to get real, time to get authentic, time to start having some compassion for self. And that's where I started. That's what I started to build upon.
That's beautiful. I kind of started the same way too, and then there's still parts of me that, as we all are human, that we do tend to fall back into some of those patterns. But I think the quicker that we can notice the green light instead of the red, I think that's when we're able to move forward and not restrict ourselves from doing too much or juggling too many things or trying to accommodate so many people. Is that getting back to self is the number one importance to identifying your own self-resilience.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, Okay, so self-esteem and self-confidence
Yeah,
is some of the, well, for me, I would say would be the two major things. So in working with my clients, one of the things I try to tell them too is always take it back to self-responsibility, so that you are not in that fight or flight. I'm a person that I tend to freeze. I just clam up and then I don't know what I'm doing. So is there any sort of meditation or any sort of like grounding exercises that you do with your clients that can kind of bring them back to the green zone rather than the red zone?
for sure. It varies depending on the person.
Yep.
Um, so for me, it is meditation. And it's also, walking on my treadmill, walking outside in nature, getting outside in nature in the wintertime, going skiing and snowshoeing. And so, that kind of points to another thing that is a really important key skill, a skill building thing that we really, really have lost sight of in our society and in our busy hustle bustle world, is that it's really important to start to enjoy life. And so whatever that looks like for you, because enjoying life, once again, has a huge impact on our resilience and on our brain. It lowers stress. There's an increase in our neurochemicals and our norepinephrine and our natural opioids. And so enjoying life is really a good place to start. And so once again, what does that look like for you? For me, it looked like meditation. It looked like snowshoeing. It looked like getting out into nature. And so and another big piece to this picture, and this was something that I was really missing when I was going through a hard time in my life, going through a hard time in my marriage and that kind of thing, is I was missing connection with other people, with other women especially. And so, that's a really key part of our group is that connection, that authenticity, that connection with other women, that knowing that, we're not alone in our vulnerability and that kind of thing, but also to not stay there, not ruminate and stay there and, stay in this, like what I said before, this neural swamp of sort of toxicity. It's to connect with other women, the way you and I connected last week, and then say, you know what, we're doing pretty good here. Let's highlight the positives, and then move on from there. So once again, that for you and I, I'm a light worker, you are as well. And so meditation and those grounding exercises in nature are really important for us. And then so with my clients, it need to get to know them better. I just can't sort of sell them on, this is what works for me, so that's what's going to work for you. It's getting to know what they enjoy.
Great. That's awesome. And so what would you suggest to people? Because I know with some of my clients, they tend to get stuck in isolation. Like they're doing the work, they're doing what they can to try to move through whatever it is they're going through. But one of the things is they tend to isolate themselves. It's still connecting, but not in the physical. So would you say connecting in person is just as important as connecting through the phone, through social media, through that type of modality?
Exactly. And I think, it's we talk so much about finding our tribe, but it's really true. It's finding like-minded people who that can validate us and share our story without judgment, and to say, this is who I am, this is what I am, and to really in real time feel that connection with others. And Brene Brown talks a lot about this, and this is really all about becoming empowered through resilience. Is we open ourselves up to authenticity, to truth, and we connect with others. And so with your clients, as with my clients, you can have that connection on a one-on-one. That's a great place to start. But it's important to either A, do some group work, or B, get together at some social functions where, maybe for one person they're introvert and they need to just, you know,